Ian Garry is going to destroy Belal Muhammad this weekend, and it won't even be close. Let's get into it. Despite Belal Muhammad being a recent former champion, I just honestly think he stands no chance against Ian Garry. I don't know why I'm saying this like I feel like it's a hot take. I feel like there's some pretty obvious reasons as to why Ian Garry will dominate this fight. Ian Garry's style is just the worst possible matchup for someone like Belal Muhammad. Dana White has confirmed that this is a #1 contender fight if Ian Garry wins, because you know if Belal Muhammad wins, even if Islam wasn't the champ, Dana White would not be giving Belal another title shot. He has to go on another 10 fight win streak at least. But in this fight, it's pretty obvious what the stakes are. Belal is fighting for relevance, where Ian Garry is fighting to prove himself. Despite Ian Garry dominating majority of his fights in his UFC career, the moment that he got a genuine real test in Shavkat Rakhmonov, he came up short, and Belal now coming off his first loss of the past decade against JDM, this matchup is really do or die for him. The first thing I want to talk about is the physical and technical reality. This is where the matchup for me already starts falling apart. Let's just look at the age gap between two fighters. Ian Garry is 28 years old, while Belal Muhammad is 37. That's a 9-year age gap, and in UFC terms, this makes all the difference. Especially when you look at a fighter's prime is typically from 31 to 34 years old. In UFC terms, Belal has been out of his prime for the past couple of years, whereas Ian Garry is still technically not in his prime yet. Given the fact that Belal Muhammad started training at a much later age compared to the rest of these guys, I think that's why he's been able to have the success he has had in the later stages of his career. But when you really go back and look at that fight against JDM, his reaction time was a lot slower. Not to mention, Belal Muhammad has had 26 pro fights and 10 of them in the UFC have gone to decision. The reason I even mention this is because when you go to decision for majority of your fights, you're accumulating a lot of damage. And considering in some of his fights, he did take some very big shots. Whereas Ian Garry, in the UFC, he's barely been touched. He has a style that a lot of fans hate, but is very effective. That stand at range and point fight. It might lose you fans, man, but it saves you brain cells. Not to mention the big height and reach advantage that Ian Garry has coming into this fight. Ian Garry is 6'3" with a 74-inch reach, where Belal Muhammad is 5'11" with a 72 reach. 2 inches might not seem like a lot, but when you're in the octagon and you're trying to gauge distance, it makes all the difference. Especially when your game plan is to come in and try to take your opponent down and hold him for 25 minutes. If you can't close that distance, you're screwed. And Belal Muhammad always struggles with long rangey strikers early on in fights. It takes him usually at least a round or two to find his range and really get that rhythm of shooting in for takedowns. If you just look at the Wonderboy fight, the Brady fight, even the Leon fight, all of these guys were able to land on Belal Muhammad very early on. The next theme I want to talk about, which I personally think is the most important of all, the psychology of both fighters. Like him or not, Ian Garry is the epitome of self-belief and getting to where you are because you envisioned it for so long. One thing I will give Ian Garry credit for is the fact that he has got confidence that is real. It's not fake confidence, it comes from a genuine place. He's genuinely convinced that he is the inevitable champ, and I'm starting to believe it, man. I don't know about you guys, but can't you just imagine him being a UFC champion? For some reason, that just makes sense to me. But also, his confidence is based on winning streaks. It's based on only losing one fight in your entire career, and even in that fight that he lost, he didn't get dominated. When you watch his fights, he's constantly improving and honestly has one of the highest fight IQs in the welterweight division. The only thing about Ian Garry is he talks like he's elite coming into these fights, going to knock out his opponent.
I'm going to finish Belal Muhammad. I want everyone to say that I look the best. Whoever wins that belt, I will punch a hole in their head.
But in reality, he's coming into point fight and play it safe. It's effective and is getting him to the top. Whereas Belal Muhammad is in a very weird place in his career right now. Dare I say, an identity crisis. His identity for his entire UFC career was being this guy that was on an insanely long win streak, but still not getting the credit he deserved. Whereas in the past 2 years, he's become more famous than he ever has been and also became champion. He was on a 10 fight win streak, finally earned his title shot, but then got beaten convincingly by JDM. That would crush anyone mentally. And now Belal Muhammad is 37 years old, and one thing that isn't being talked about enough is the fact that he's being overshadowed by Islam Makhachev. He's stuck in that merit but no reward hole where even if he wins this fight, realistically he's not going to be fighting for the belt. Obviously because Islam Makhachev is the champion, but even if Islam wasn't the champ and he won this fight, Dana White would not be giving Belal Muhammad a title shot next. I genuinely do think we've seen the peak of Belal Muhammad, and I think he's stuck at the top of a division that is absolutely stacked full of young up and coming guys that honestly I think he's going to go on a losing streak and then retire. His motivation these past couple of years has switched from hunger to maintenance to now desperation. That's just the cycle and the downfall of a champion, man. Especially when you don't even defend your belt once, you want to get back to the top to just prove to everyone that you're still worthy of relevance. And that's just not a genuine motivator. This next theme I want to talk about is a stylistic mismatch. Ian Garry's greatest weapon in this fight is going to be his leg kicks. I'm going to call it right now, he will win this fight strictly because of the leg kick game plan he's implementing. What is every wrestler's kryptonite? It's when someone targets your lead leg, especially Belal Muhammad. He is so heavy on that lead leg. And throughout Ian Garry's career, he's destroyed legs. Take that Neil Magny fight, for example. He absolutely chewed up the calf of that leg.
And he started to clinch me. That was one.
And then even in that Jeff Neal fight, because again, Jeff Neal is very heavy on his lead leg, that was his greatest weapon to his victory. Belal always steps forward with that lead leg in order to close the distance to shoot in for the takedown. But when you don't have that leg under you, he's going to have to switch stances, but he's not as comfortable fighting in that opposite stance. His takedowns are going to fail, he's going to be very sloppy on the feet, and eventually he's just going to wither away. That's why I truly believe that Ian Garry is the stylistic nightmare for Belal Muhammad. When these long-rangey strikers come up against a short, stocky wrestler, it just never ends well for the wrestler, man. Take Morales versus Sean Brady, for example. This is a perfect comparison. We saw what happened last weekend. Sean Brady wasn't able to close the distance because Morales had that reach on him and that height on him. And then as soon as Sean Brady would enter into range, he would just get picked apart with that jab. And Belal Muhammad's game plan in every fight relies so heavily on that forward pressure. In most of his fights, you never see him taking a step back, but I think against an opponent like Ian Garry, that's going to be his downfall. Ian Garry will be on the back foot majority of this fight, but he's going to do that on purpose to be able to pick Belal Muhammad at range. And the way that Belal can counter this game plan is by using footwork to trap Ian Garry on the cage. But from just watching Ian Garry's past fights, he's so good at circling out and using that footwork to switch stances, to confuse his opponent and get off the cage. He's constantly moving, using those teeps and those jabs to keep his opponent at bay, and Belal Muhammad is just going to walk straight into those. I gotta give credit to Belal here. Both of these guys have very high fight IQs. You see this with a lot of fighters that maybe aren't the most exciting fighters. They're very smart in the octagon and they know how to win a fight. But I don't know what happened to Belal in his last fight, man. We really saw his fight IQ just drop. He didn't utilize the takedowns against JDM well enough, and again was so heavy on that lead leg and it was getting chewed up by JDM. That's why I think unless Belal is able to trap Ian Garry against the fence, he's going to have a really rough night. Which leads me into my next theme, which is the paths to victory. Ian Garry's path to victory, which in my opinion is the most likely scenario here, is going to be, like I said, those calf kicks very early on. He needs to implement them in order to slow Belal Muhammad's footwork. He's got to use that reach to his advantage, throw out that jab, constantly take Belal Muhammad off his rhythm, because once Belal gets your rhythm down, he's very effective at masking his takedowns with overhands. And I'm going to say it, as much as I don't want to see this happen, Ian Garry has to play this fight safe. If he tries to stand in range and knock Belal Muhammad out like he's been saying, which absolutely no one believes, Belal Muhammad will have a very easy night, and at all times avoid the takedowns of Belal, because if Belal Muhammad gets Ian Garry to the ground, he's going to struggle despite having decent jiu-jitsu. Belal Muhammad absolutely smothers his opponents, and to be honest, Leon Edwards and Ian Garry have very similar grappling attributes. But we saw that Belal Muhammad was able to control Leon on the ground and just smother him. Ian Garry doesn't really try to entertain in the octagon. I think he tries to do that in the lead up to fights, and I think as long as he sticks to that, he'll be fine. Point fighting is his wheelhouse, man. Now Belal's path, the much harder path. Not impossible, but unlikely. He's got to pour that pressure on from round one. Like I said, get on that front foot, and he's got to expect the fact that Ian Garry is going to be on that back foot, constantly running away, trying to avoid Belal. But Belal's game plan here has to be to try to cut off the cage and really get Ian Garry against the fence and get in that clinch. We saw when Belal Muhammad absolutely dunked Leon on his noggin. That was because he had him against the fence. And in this matchup, he needs to do a very similar approach. He has to chain wrestle and do his best to make this fight ugly. But in my opinion, the age, the reach disadvantage, and the loss of hunger is going to be his downfall here. Which brings me into my next theme, the stakes of this fight. Ian Garry wins, he 100% not only deserves, but will get the next title shot. Like I said in my last video, that Dagestani versus Irish storyline is already embedded in this fight. He will become undeniable. Belal Muhammad, apart from JDM, them is the #1 contender. If Ian Garry beats him here, you can't justify giving a title shot to Carlos Prates or even Michael Morales. He will also become the face of Ireland's MMA and honestly enters the title picture at the perfect age. Where if Belal loses, he is 37 years old, man. Where does he go from here? He's going to have to fight much further down in the rankings. Ian Garry is already ranked number 6, and if Belal loses here, I could honestly see the UFC putting him up against someone at the bottom half of the top 10. And let's just be real, he will never be getting another title shot again. All of these guys at the top of the welterweight division are all young, hungry prospects, except for Kamaru Usman. That's the fight the UFC should make, him versus Kamaru Usman. There's already a built-in beef storyline there, so I would actually want to see this. And honestly, he would just be overshadowed permanently by Islam Makhachev. So this is more than just a fight, man. This is Belal Muhammad's last chance to cement himself as a top contender. And this is Ian Garry's opportunity to finally prove to the world that he is worth the hype. And Ian Garry has been gifted the perfect opportunity here. So while Belal is tough, he has heart, and I don't see him getting finished by Ian Garry. That's why my official prediction for this co-main event is Ian Garry by unanimous decision. I think Belal could have moments in this fight, but I think it's going to be Ian Garry point fighting at range, using his footwork to circle out, and we are going to all unanimously agree that Ian Garry won this fight. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you guys do drop a like on this video and make sure to subscribe as well, man. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.